We've been selling software on the internet for about 10 years. This is our website, and we've found using the PayPal buy buttons a pretty easy way of implementing this. So when the user wants to buy our software, they click on the button and you go to PayPal, and eventually the customer can put in their information about their card and so on, and the payment goes through. Now at this stage, PayPal sends out two emails. One goes to the customer as a confirmation of what they paid for, and the other one goes out to the seller, in this case us. Now the email we receive sort of looks like this. So it's got the customer's name and the customer's email, so we can send them a mail saying thanks for your order and so on. And also, because we've got their email, we can send them out a software license file. Now, in your case, of course, you may be putting whatever they bought into a carton and using the shipping address, which is also in the email, sending that off to them, posting it to them, or setting it off by FedEx or whatever. Now, this is pretty straightforward and works pretty well. The problem comes when your business starts to get going and you're not sending out a handful of packages a day, but you're getting in, say, 100 orders or more. You're working 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, filling these orders. Your mum and dad are helping, and so are your kids, and you don't have a life. So what you really want is some way of keeping track of all your sales, and as far as possible automating everything that you have to do. So for this reason I wrote the sellEbit system. Now sellEbit's available from SourceForge. You can look at the site. You can download systems for Windows, for Linux, for your Mac. There's also all the source code, Java source code, manual, and so on. And there's this video on there, and also if you have a look down the bottom here, there's the actual old sellEbit website. So there's plenty of information. Now if I can, let me give you a quick demo of how the system works and what it can do for you. So we can start up sellEbit in the Windows case from an icon like this, and the system will start up and you get a fairly simple interface. Now what sellEbit does is it will process the emails that come in from PayPal or whatever gateway you're using. And what it does is strip all the information you want out of the email or other transaction and put them into a database. Now the way you get this information in the crudest way is sellEbit has a folder, a directory, and there's a input queue, which is to say a directory. So to process an email like this, I have to get it into the input folder. Now if you're running something like Outlook, it's easy. You can just do a save as, and we want the files to actually be more or less straight text files. So if you're using a cheap sort of email client like this Windows one way of doing it is just simply select everything, copy it, paste it into an editor. I'm using the old Notepad, and then I can do File, Save As, and put it into the sellEbit input thing, and just give it any name you like. It doesn't really matter. Okay, so now it's sitting in the input queue. So let's start having a bit of a look at how sellEbit works. So there's a control file here, and what you can see is it's turned on, and it's already processed that email, and it's put it into a tree over here. Now this tree holds all your current orders, or your current sales, and there's a log, and you can see what happened when the system processed this email we had. Have a look at it again, and you can see that it's gone through here. It's here's the source email, which is the Grumpy's email from here, and there's various other stuff such as his address and so on's been pulled out. Now I can select a transaction over here and look at it over in the tab over here. So I've got the data of the raw email. I've also got transaction, and this is the information that we really want that's been pulled out. So there's a transaction ID, which is the same as the transaction ID in the in the email. How much the amount was, what it costs, his address, and so on. Also over here we've got items. So in our case I've just bought one item, which is our software, but there could equally be multiple items if they bought lots of things at the same time. So there are all your orders, and the way you now fill your order is you can look at the information you want here, and there's a status here. So as you package up each item, you can change the status here and say it's out of stock or something, or in the simple case we've done it, so that's been packaged. You can do that for each item. Save it down here whenever you like, or you can look at the main transaction and similarly change the status here. It's a new one. You could say it's partially done, or more likely you've sent it off. Now you've set the status to sent, so you hit apply, and that means the transaction is now done. Now that you've set the status on the transaction to have done, it disappears out of the order here, out of the tree here, and so this is the way you work through all your transactions. You might have 100 or so here, and you can keep track. They disappear as you fill them. Now I've actually put a whole lot of transactions, sample transactions, in here, and what I can do is look at all my old transactions using a filter. So you usually filter on some date range, and then you hit tree, and in our filtered tree now you've got all these old transactions, and it's the same format as your current transactions. Now, a more likely thing is you'll want to look at your last year's or your last week's or something like that transactions. So perhaps we have a look at, I don't know, a couple of months transactions here. So for the date here, and pull them down into the tree. Probably got a few too many there, so perhaps we'll go back, do June, tree again, and whoops, 19, tree. Okay, now we've got a few. Now you can get various other things out, such as you can get the transaction type, and the system actually handles your sales. It also handles donations and purchases. So if you buy and sell on the internet, you can put in your purchases as well as your sales. Now, so we'll just do sales, so you hit the tree again, and those are our current sales. Now, we've filtered, we've got a subset of your transactions in the database. What you can now do is on these transactions, you can do things like reports. So list all these transactions that have come in, which has got the data in it that you extracted out of the emails. You can look at the actual items within each order. So here's an order for a wine company and a couple of different sorts of wine which were brought in. They've been sent off, so the status of these is done, and the status of the order is sent, so it's completed, it's gone out. Now, probably the main report is an income report, and it tells you how much you've sold within this time range for these items. You can also do plots, so you can do when the transactions took place, when they arrived, number of transactions on a monthly basis, so not much here. Transactions amounts, transactions based on country, the various items that have been sold, and the number of sales you made for each of those within this filter time period. And you can also keep track of stock levels if you want to, which we haven't done here. Now you can also do a directed graph which will show you the relationships between your various orders and the products and so on. Now the filtered tree works pretty much the same way as your orders tree, and so similarly to there you can have a look at your transactions and so on. And here's one where there's two types of wine were ordered, and the order's down here. However, I do want to point out that these transactions can actually be changed if you want to. So for example, your customer gets in touch with you and wants to change something. You find you're out of stock and you email them saying that can you change something and whatever. So you can get in and change anything you like on the order, and then you can apply it to put it in. If your order gets cancelled, then you can delete the transaction. You can add more items or delete items out of here if you want to. And you can even, if you want to, put in a completely new transaction and actually type it in and then apply it to put it into the database. So let's have a bit of a look at how you might start to speed these things up. So I think you'll agree the process of getting your mail in and dropping it into a directory yourself to get it processed is a bit of a pain. So as you'd expect, you can actually set the system up so it'll actually go up and retrieve mail for you. Now you've probably got an email specifically for your orders to come in, and another email address which you use to talk to your customers. And you might get onto Gmail and set yourself up an order, an ordering email, and Gmail will tell you the various parameters you need to put in here, like what the mail host is, what your email address is, and its password, and so on. And then once you put all this in, you can enable it and apply it down here, and the system will start going out and pulling down mail as often as you've specified. So you might do it every 10 minutes or once an hour or whatever. And you can turn it on, processing on and off as well. Now, the other thing you want to do is send mail out, and you can turn the sending of your mail out, so this is the things that you're sending to your client. Let me say a bit about setting up your system. There's a configuration file, or several in fact, in your configuration directory, and you need to set up a few things in here, such as the mail you're using to mail address to output your mail to your customers. Other things you can do is in the sellEbit data there's what we call templates, and you can set up automatic messages to go out to your customers. So for example, there's one that gets sent out if they purchase digital data. You can send them a receipt. You can also put up various responses to them, and also responses based on the item code. And you can have a hierarchy here, such as the wine one goes out, but if they order a specific type of wine, then it's a different one. Now these templates are all text files, and you can put anything you like into them, but they have special sort of fields in them, fixed amounts, so you can write up as a text thing the email you want to go out. However, you can use these special strings which will be replaced by the information that applies to that item or the order. Another example might be sending them a tax receipt, and blah blah blah, and you can fill in the special strings that again will be specifically filled in according to the actual order. So you can automatically send out quite a few emails to save you having to do it. Similarly, there's other things, there's facilities in there to generate a license file, which we use for our software. You can also automatically send out digital data. So I don't know if I've got anything particularly, probably not. So you can say for this product code, if you get an order for that, then automatically send out a particular file, and you can set this up so it all happens automatically for you. Let me show you a bit more about inputting data. There's some demonstration emails available, and let's select a few of these. So copy them, go back into our data, our input, and put them in there. So we've got a few emails in there. Now in our control thing, you can see it's got the number queued, and it's counting down as it processes them. They're appearing in the log as it processes them, and your new orders are appearing over here. Now, also in the control, it's already put all those in, and once again you've got all your orders here that you can start filling in the usual way. Now, sellEbit will actually process any text file that you might have the information you want in. So you might get an XML file from your gateway provider, which you can output in some way and get into the input queue. There's also a second queue, which is old input queue, and it's designed to be used for old data. So when you start using sellEbit, you might have a few years old emails. You can load them in here, so they'll be available to display as your statistics. Finally, the bad news. The system has to know how to extract the data out of your emails or other transactions. Now, to do this, we have a program called the Gateway GUI. Now, if we look at our original email, it looks like this. I can load the email up into the Gateway GUI, which I've done here, and here is the email. Now, you can set up a whole lot of definitions as to how you extract data for various gateways, and the chances are, unless it's PayPal, we won't have done it for you. So this GUI enables you to define how to extract the data and enables you to test it all. So if we go back to the original email again, the sort of thing we'd want to find out is the transaction ID, which we can extract by looking for transaction ID, the string, and then pulling out the bit after it. For example, we can get the name of your customer by looking for the string buyer colon on it and then pulling out the next value, and so on. So for example, we've got our email in there, we can choose one of the PayPal ones, and then we can test it, and you can see that it failed. You can have a look at the test results, and it tells you why it failed. So let's go back to another definition. This is one which I think should work, and we can test that, and yes, it's successfully taken it out, and here's a normal log showing you what it did and what it's pulled out. So for example, it's pulled out Grumpy Dwarf's address is Grumpy Dwarf at Mining Street, blah blah blah. In the email, we have his address somewhere, which has shipping address, Grumpy Dwarf, and so on. So we look at the definition. The definition for finding the address is look for the string shipping address and pull out all the information between that and the string following, which is instructions to the merchant, and so on. Now, each of these definitions you can just type new at any stage, and this is the identifier corresponding here. So if you wanted a new one, you just type some name in here. I typically use something with the name of the gateway followed by a date, and the gateway name at the top, some description, and the type of transaction you're handling, which might be a donation or a purchase, and so on. In this case, this sort of email can have multiple items purchased by your customer, and for example, this is how you pull out the items. Let's see if we can find it down here. Here we are. You have the string description, and so here's description, and after that you pull out everything up to the next comma, so that's our description of what we were selling. Then the item number, which is our code, so you look for item code, item number, and pull out the word following it, and so on. So there's several ways you can specify how to extract the data, and you set up the appropriate strings in here. And well, enjoy yourself. Once you've got all this set up, then you should be able to pull out the data using the normal process. You'll find that as you run your data through, if there's any errors, mail that can't be processed, they go into this error queue. And for example, we got, out of those stuff I put in, there was 4 that couldn't be handled. Okay, well, I think that's miles too much information for you, but I hope you find the software of use. It's free, of course, and if you're keen, you can download even the source code and play around with that.